You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension of sight and sound and mind. But luckily, there are drinks involved. Yeah. Lots of booze. Yeah. You have entered the Monster Party.
Monster Party!
Monster Party!
Love it!
Oh, Monster Party.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
Hey, let's get right to it. I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
And we have an amazing guest today. Oh my God. Man, this is like sci-fi royalty.
Totally.
Oh my God.
Matt, we are so lucky.
We are we're very, very lucky. I am honored and somehow shamed at the same time. It's great. It's how I think. There's a lot of weird contradictions within my head. But this guy has been a great friend of mine for years. An amazing comedian.
What?
Improviser.
What?
Actor. Very, very well-known actor.
Yes.
Right.
You might know him from a little thing called the X Files.
You might.
Or you might just know him.
He's from the Lone Gunman.
He's a popular guy. You
Very
might just know him. But yes, he is one of the lone gunmen from the X Files. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Dean Haglund.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yay, Monster Party.
Dean, we are thrilled to have you.
We are thrilled. Yes.
It's about time. Like, how many years now have you invited me to this thing? And I've
probably 17 already.
17
yeah.
now, yeah.
Because we've been doing a lot of dry runs of the show before we.
None of them. You just haven't. You thought you recorded it.
Exactly right.
Put it up, yeah.
For years, we thought we knew what we were doing.
Right.
And Matt, it's appropriate to have him because we have a very special topic.
Yes.
What?
The topic is sci-fi TV.
Right.
Something you may be familiar with.
Well, you know, right off the bat, I got to say, Chris Carter.
Yeah.
He once called me at a hotel room in Ann Arbor, Michigan, of all things, and he said, "I don't want you to do science fiction conventions."
What? Whoa.
Yeah.
When was this? Was this
It was like in the 90s.
He said he didn't want you to do sci-fi
Yeah,
conventions.
He's go, why is that? Well, we don't want to associate X Files with sci-fi.
Really?
Yeah, I go, well, that's exactly what I said. I went,
no.
Really? I go, why would that be? Well, it's not really sci-fi. We're not wearing, we're not in space and wearing polyester and stuff like that. You go, well, what?
No one was wearing polyester? Seriously? I watched every episode.
Not even a blend? Cotton. That was cotton. Cotton and leather all around. But he said, no, this is more science probability.
Well,
there's those science probability conventions, which are really popular.
There's only two of those.
Don't say that. Creation will start right now.
Science probability.
See, Dean, I don't know about that. I maybe he just didn't want you guys to. Maybe he wanted X Files to just kind of go in its own little special area. But I do consider it science fiction television. Of
course it is.
Because there's science and there's it's a fictional story.
Aliens.
Yeah, you would think those and aliens. But at the same time, he didn't want to be associated with the cheese factor. So I think there was a fight going on with Creations at the time, so that it wasn't like a cheapo pipe and curtain medley.
And yet they ended up doing X-Files
They
conventions.
eventually
They did.
Right.
But the X-File conventions was a Fox thing that they thought they could do better.
Oh
So
no, I didn't know that.
Is that right? They weren't Creations?
It
wasn't
was
Creations.
Fox.
No. Yeah.
20th Century Fox.
20th Century Fox. The marketing people went, okay, well, this is crap. We can do this way better.
And
So
more
they set-
expensive.
More expensive. So there were 6 semi-trailers full of props and $1 million soundboard lighting system and the stage thing. And they thought, okay, we're going to do 10 cities or 12 cities through North America. And it was these massive X-Files Expo with virtual reality and green screen photo opportunities and blah, blah, blah. And then they thought, okay, so we're going to do the 10, 12 major cities and all the markets. And then from there, we'll do the secondary markets. Then we'll go to Europe. And then it was like this whole plan to do this whole thing. Wow. And they had me do all 12 of them.
No.
Like, flying us first class at the Ritz-Carlton at every fucking
wow.
It was like this crazy, out of control like thing. And of course, they lost their shirts and they realized, oh, yeah.
We better not do this again.
It really is something that Creations actually knows the market.
Cut to Days In.
But look,
somewhere in Bakersfield.
Exactly.
If we're going to start with the X Files, though, I think that maybe that's a good place to start. I mean, so Chris Carter, he created this. This is what back in 1993. It
aired. The first one aired in 93.
93.
It was like Fridays at 8 o'clock, I think, right?
Yeah, remember it was like a Friday.
I remember it was like this little show. Like, what is this X Files show?
I remember coming in on I think the first one I ever watched was the Tombs one.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
great one.
What the hell
Doug
is
Hutchinson.
this? Doug Hutchinson, genius.
Genius, who was then later in Green Mile.
Mile, yeah.
And then married that 16-year-old in
Well,
Vegas.
you know, life can take some unusual turns. If you're Doug Hutchinson,
that happened. You know.
she watched that episode and went, "Oh, you can fit in all kinds of different holes."
But for those of our listeners who don't know what the X Files is,
Right.
What?
You know, who would that be?
One
doesn't know what
maybe
the
doesn't.
I know,
You appeal to
it's funny.
18-year-olds?
It's funny, James. You would think who would listen to this show and not know about the X Files? So it's almost
No
like
one.
saying who would listen to us and not know about Star Trek? I know. So
Okay, well, that's actually a good point.
What?
That's actually a very good point, Larry. Then we should clear this up, James,
I'm-
because we had the Star Trek
Episode,
podcast,
yes.
and then we find out at the end. He doesn't tell us. He doesn't tell us till the end of the podcast
close to the
that
end.
he has never watched a Star Trek episode all the way through.
all the way through,
All the way through. Like,
How
like
did you get
after
on the show?
Yeah. Space, the final Space, the final frontier. Fuck this. This can't be any good.
I think I'm getting voted off pretty
No.
soon.
No. The point is look, we all have. There's certain things that some of us watch more than others,
yes.
And had escaped
but
us.
For the people who don't know, the X Files, it's about these two FBI agents,
Mulder and
Mulder and
Scully.
Scully.
You're really going to describe the show?
Well,
By the way,
I was
it's
just
easy to
saying-
do.
Amazing.
It's easy to do.
Okay, good. No, go
It's like,
for it.
You know, they solve
Let's hear it.
they solve cases involving like strange and unexplained phenomena. You know,
Yes.
and in a way, it's what I like about the show.
It's Scooby Doo with more smoking.
No, it's not Scooby Doo, Matt. You know, it's a combination of a lot of great
my magic
science.
bin.
It's got a lot of great other elements from other science fiction series, which like combination of like let's say Outer Limits, Twilight Zone, Kojak the Night
Kolchak,
Stalker.
yeah.
Oh,
Particularly
A lot of
Kolchak.
Kolchak.
Wasn't Carter
Chris-
kind of inspired a lot by that?
Absolutely. He said in no uncertain terms that it was Kolchak the Night Stalker, that he loved that show, and that he wanted to do like a more serious version. I want to
Who
do
doesn't want to do a serious version?
You're comedic.
I have never had sex with anyone, and I'm very much into city politics.
And you've only been drinking for a half an hour. Wow.
They're big drinks. Anyway, the point is,
Yes.
so Kolchak the Night Stalker was really the model that he used, but he thought that it always ended kind of oddly, where the guy went, "Oh, and there's a vampire in Vegas. Oh well," and I write the story, and the story's killed, and like it was always like,
Right.
what?
Yeah.
So he made it so that there was a more deeper exploration of it, and then oddly enough, well, not oddly enough, weirdly enough, Gillian actually met a guy and got pregnant the first season.
That's right, yeah.
And then
right.
to write her out, they actually wrote her out of a couple of episodes when she was due, and so that then began the story
arc, right? The big
yeah,
story
very
arc,
big
yeah.
arc
Yeah.
about her being abducted and all that sort of thing. So this became one of the first shows that you had a larger story arc,
Right.
as well as these monsters of the week all through the show.
Because it did kind of start out early on, more like a standalone episode.
Every
most of the
estate,
week,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
which is exactly what Kolchak the Night
Totally,
Stalker.
totally.
Like every time he comes back, it's like, oh, it's a werewolf in Vegas.
Vincenzo, there's a
And
werewolf, I
like,
swear.
yeah, I know. And you go, well, last week there was a vampire. Why are you weirded out by all this stuff in Vegas? I don't understand.
But Chris Carter he wanted to make sure that these two, they worked together and they were friends. He didn't necessarily want a romantic involvement, did he?
Not at the beginning,
not at the
right?
beginning.
I mean, but my understanding was, isn't it as it started to go? I mean, it did so well. I think better than anyone anticipated.
Yeah.
And
9 seasons.
Yeah, 9 seasons. But it got to a point where I guess everyone's wanting more, and the fans. It wasn't the fans that wanted a relationship. And then when you see the thing that gets me,
Don't get yourself in trouble.
The thing that gets me is when you go to the last 2 seasons. I mean, Sean, back me up here. When you get to the last 2 seasons and you get to the involvement of the when they get romantically involved,
Right.
I mean,
and
those
Doggett shows up. And
yeah, it's just not my.
it's just see exactly. Okay, so there was two.
We want to
cats.
know what your take on as far as how the show evolved.
Funny you should ask this because I was invited to Comic-Con.
Nice one, Sean.
Like that. Way to go, Sean. Way to segue this whole thing. Comic-Con, when they did the season 10 IDW comic books, which is part of the official canon that Chris Carter's on,
Right.
So I was asked to moderate the panel with Gillian Anderson and Chris Carter and all that sort of thing. And I stood up there in front of a packed room. It was like 3,000 fans or whatever. And I said, when the show started, it was a relationship between Mulder and Scully appreciating each other for their intellect. They could work together. They had a relationship. It was not sexual. They weren't living together. There was no tension, but it was just mutual respect of two people working together that had different ideas, like completely opposite views.
Right?
Fantastic. And so it devolved, in my point, to them suddenly in the second movie just waking up in a cabin together. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So there was two camps. And the camps that wanted them in a relationship were called shippers. And the ones that want shippers, they were known as shippers in the convention world.
Okay.
And then the ones that liked them as they were called no romos.
What the hell?
No Romos.
What's that, like no room?
Romantic.
Like no
Romantic.
no romantic.
Romos. Okay.
What does shippers mean?
What's shippers?
Shipper,
Yeah.
you're in a relationship.
Oh.
Right. So,
We're a little
Interesting.
slow.
Yeah.
so
You know, I sling this lingo with my wife. It doesn't get me anywhere.
Hey, you're a shipper.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a shipper. What do you want?
Are there T-shirts like "I'm a shipper, I'm a no Romo"?
In fact,
my
there was
God.
a convention where all the shippers took the 12th floor and all
Oh my God, you kidding me?
and they had a whole panel where they just argued shipper and no Romo for the
See,
Hilarious.
I'm in the middle.
right?
I wanted them just to be fuck buddies. Like every once in a while, they're like, "Hey,
Matt,
you know what?
come
We're
on.
staking something out. We're in a
No.
hotel.
We got
No.
3 hours.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah,
We'll fuck a while.
No,
Nothing personal.
No, Mulder's a lot classier than that. You know.
No, he's not.
Yes,
Have you seen Californication?
Look, okay. See,
That's part of the X Files canon,
Hey,
right?
hey. No, wait a minute. You are mixing two completely different, separate TV shows.
I think you're wrong.
No. Californication. It has nothing to do with sci-fi
yeah,
TV.
but look, those two actors had chemistry, and it wasn't that big of a stretch, I don't think, to translate into sexual chemistry.
Well, okay, so fine, but that chemistry was based on a mutual understanding of the dire situation that they were in, of a alien invasion and a government.
It kind of belittled in some ways the situation they were in.
absolutely.
And yet more of a reason that they should have hooked up and just fucked.
No,
Because the world is coming to an end.
No.
What are you going to do when the plane starts crashing?
Matt, they should
you
never
find the hottest
ever,
person next to you.
They should never, ever have gotten together. Never.
Well, okay.
No, I'm from that camp. They should have
You're no
always
Romo.
No Romo.
You're no Romo. You are no Romo.
And it's not that I don't like romance in a series. I just think it works so well when they just respected each other.
Yes.
You know, and there was
rare.
this mutual
So
and
rare.
it's like just respect her for her mind and her
Absolutely.
and
When do you
and her
ever see that?
intelligence and
Okay, so I'm at the convention at Comic-Con, and I
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I'm no Romo," and I go, "Who's with me?" 3 people. Clap.
Oh my God! Really?
wait. How many people were in the audience? Like 6?
3,000.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, and they're like
Horny
like
bastards.
0.001%.
Oh my God. I had no idea.
Like so sad.
Well, but that's basically what happened. I think because didn't Chris Carter? He left the show. Didn't he leave? He
no,
left.
no. They got into a little lawsuit.
Oh, yeah,
In
okay.
the middle of it.
Yeah, we don't. Okay, we don't have to talk about that. But his involvement was not as much as he was in the first season. So he left, and wasn't it Fox kind of like pushed? It's like, look, we want them to get involved. We want the shippers.
Yeah. So there was Frank Spotnitz, John Scheiben, and of course Vince Gilligan, who went on to do Breaking Better Call Saul. Those were the 4 main writers, and so they would discuss amongst themselves how to structure these stories, which direction to take it, what stories to involve, and that sort of thing. And Chris was very much, let's just keep him on a no Romo basis, but it was Frank and Vince and like the other guys that were like, no, you know what? The logical arc of this whole story is that they get into a relationship, that there's no way you can go through this kind of pressure cooker and not be closer together to the point of that sort of thing happening.
I see.
Well, but now here my
See
argument.
that a little bit.
You
though.
can, right?
I could.
That's not a bad argument.
I could, but I would say, and I loved X Files. I mean, I loved it.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, but where it started to lose me was like I saw all these great arcs, all these things that were started, and instead of worrying about the whole romance thing, let's
Finish these arcs.
finish the arcs.
Oh my God.
Let's.
How about the oil in the eyes?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, yes.
What?
Was that ever explained?
Was
Ever?
that,
And it started off great.
great. Krychek has it. He's stuck in a
Yes.
silo. His oil in the
Yeah,
eye.
that was
the whole
a
thing
great
is like-
moment.
It was great, right? And then you have it's dropped. It is dropped as much as Sopranos in the third season drops the Russians.
Oh, yes, yeah, right.
I'm gonna fucking kill you guys.
Yeah.
And then you never see
I
Mob again.
would also argue the movie didn't do them any favors.
The second or the first?
Well, the first one.
The first one.
Because the first one has a lot of stuff that's like there's a lot, when you fall through the ice and then slide through a tunnel that lands you right in front of aliens. I've been trying that for years. No aliens.
No argument.
A lot of frostbite.
Wasn't that movie, the first movie, also kind of, it was unique because wasn't it coming out when the show was still on?
I mean, it's huge. And
It's not very.
So it was hard to write that movie because it was in the middle of season 5 to season 6.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who never watched the series, it had to be a standalone movie.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, for everybody who was hooked into the thing, it had to take you from season 5 to season 6 and keep that arc going.
Which in theory is kind of a bold idea, but it was just it's just hard to do.
It's hard to do.
I mean, I don't know if you guys remember when you saw the movie. I saw it on opening night, and that place was packed. I saw it at Grauman's Chinese Theater.
Oh, wow,
and the audience, it was a packed house, and there's this moment where Mulder and Scully are so close, and it looks like they're about ready to kiss, and they pull apart, and the audience went nuts. And I'm looking around going, are you kidding? What are you
full of shippers.
Yes, they're full of shippers.
I know.
Yep.
And you're just so weird about why are you into shipping, you two? Why
that you could have saved that scene where just Mulder then just like licks up the side of her face, and she goes, ew, and then that just settles it forever. You're gross. Oh my god, I can't believe I ever thought that you would be.
That's not happening.
Yeah. Okay. So the case.
Yes, exactly.
So Dean, tell me the two, like, as far as the lone gunman, their role in the show, how it changed, or how much did Carter have to do with like where it went, and
Yeah, well, the lone gunman was just supposed to be in one episode in the first season, and then everybody. Remember the early days of the internet where you had a Unix news group called Alt TV X Files? This was like a amber screen when you had your amber screen and you just had like
the amber screen.
And you like click, click, click. Oh, hey, I like the X Files. Click, click. Oh, me too. Click, click, click. So that was going on.
HAGLUND, heart.
Exactly. But you had to do like 19 characters. Backslash, other backslash, up or down. Yeah,
they had to print out symbols on paper that was in the shape of a heart in your face.
That's right. Yeah. So Chris Carter, Frank, and everybody was actually logged in and lurking in that news group after every episode. So they would actually, it was the first time writers could get immediate feedback of a TV show that they wrote that wasn't their mom calling, going, "Why is the couch red?" Whatever. So they started lurking in there, and then with the gunmen, they would take lines from the news group and give it to the gunmen to say.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. One of the first examples of like a show kind of really reaching out, to the
being
fans
interactive,
like
right? Now it's expected, like that.
Yeah,
Social media,
totally expected.
And but that was like the first time I was doing it. It was like this whole really weird thing.
Well, and what's so great about those characters were that you finally, what was refreshing is to see like, wow, some regular dudes.
Right. Exactly.
Regular dudes who are heroes.
Heroes. They're just sort of doing that sort of thing. They're not like, we're here, like buffed out dudes.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
there's and it's an interesting combination between the three of you guys.
Well, and that was Glenn Morgan and James Wong. Apparently saw three guys at an airport. That was a guy in a suit and a guy in a leather jacket and a short, weird guy handing out UFO literature. Yeah,
really?
Yeah, and they saw that and went, "Oh my god, that's great. We got to put that in some show sometime."
I hope I don't want to weird you out, but like when I was watching the X Files for the first time, I was in kind of a rocky relationship, and it was my escape.
Is that right?
It was my escape. And then when
it's like Friday night, shut up, bitch.
Yeah. Let's watch this together and have it be quiet time. Because she liked the show too.
All right.
And so we'd watch the show, and then they did the Lone Gunman, the first Lone Gunman one.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember that the first one you are wearing the Ramones t-shirt.
I am. Yes.
And I was like, I want to be his friend. Why can't he be my friend?
But it's really interesting, though, how they created these three guys and became really popular, and then you went off into your own series.
I know.
It only had one season. One season. But, I still enjoyed all those episodes.
I think it was too ahead of its time kind of thing, because it was like, cars that ran on water.
Yeah, I love that one. That was one of my favorites.
Right. It was like all these ideas that now everybody like, yeah, the government, blah, 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 anti-vaxxers, all that sort of thing, like all the things we talked about.
But they have the other two characters, too, right?
Yeah, and that would be my thing, too.
That's one thing. Let me guess, is that those other two characters, the kind of like the hunky guy and the hot chick was the network idea?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, okay, the stupid guy was after the first episode. We also bitched because it was like, okay, we had to drive a remote control, or we found a car that was driven by remote control.
Yeah.
And we find the chip, and we go, and we had to do the scene where it's like, oh, so they can drive a car remote control. Oh, my God. And we're like, we would kind of all know that. If you're all kind of super geniuses,
right?
Yeah.
You would not have this discussion. And we said that to the director, and they call the producers, and we have this long discussion like, oh, this is so stupid. I know we have to reveal this information to get to the next scene, but we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
And so suddenly in the next episode, here's this idiot guy who wants to join us, who's like a dumb jock sort of thing, and we have to explain everything to him.
But there are ways to, like, I would have been content just with you three guys to be,
well, and
the
that's
whole series.
and what I feel like if they did that show now,
Yeah.
that it could be you guys.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
We've got to that place.
We
now.
got to that place.
Yeah.
As I said, that's like a show ahead of its time.
I mean,
sort
talk
of.
about the element of, like, just mistrust of the government, conspiracy theories. I mean, it's all woven through, and how today it's like all over the internet and stuff. Like,
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, even this anti-vaccination thing,
Yeah.
right? This is like a whole thing. We don't trust the government.
Yeah.
They're all trying to like give our kids autism. And there's mercury in the delivery system.
Yeah.
Like all of that is like. That would be an X Files episode, except now we're all living with measles. Like that's gone full circle now. So it's just like,
Well, the idea is that a good story is a good story. Yeah, we don't have to live by it.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you're watching the X Files and go, this is how I should live my life.
Exactly. Which is why I'm worried about this talk of a miniseries reboot, because you're like. Well, now there's so many ghost hunting shows. There's so many like.
Oh my gosh!
Like
just a glut.
It's a glut of it. So that what possible angle can the X Files possibly take that would be sustaining a 6-episode, 12-episode miniseries?
You know what's funny is that like the second X Files movie,
Yes.
which I watched on a plane to Japan. Yes.
Okay.
And I
Beginning to end?
and I heard all the stuff about it.
Oh, you
know?
did?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so I watched it ready to hate it, and I kind of liked it. But you know what I felt? I went, "This is great. Why is this called the X Files? This is a nice little thriller that could have been with somebody else. Why this?
I know. And for me, this whole thing of the government, don't trust the government, the whole thing, and this movie comes at the height of the Bush administration, the biggest war cabinet that we had.
Right.
The whole thing. And we focus on Russian head transplants. Seriously, that's how we got it. There's a Russian head transplant. That's the whole thing.
It was trending. It was trending for a while. Yeah.
It really was?
Before twerking,
I did not know.
It was Russian head transplants. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry I missed that cultural phenomena.
Well, Dean, I mean, like, how the X Files, was Night Stalker back in the 70s was kind of an inspiration for it. But what when you were growing up, too, like, what sci-fi shows were you into?
Excellent question.
Excellent question. Because, I was from Canada.
Where's that? What is that?
It's a magical land.
That's what I hear.
Where
People can get sick and they don't just push you into the gutter.
You get better.
Yeah.
And there's snow. It's where your winter comes from. What?
That's where the ice in our drinks is from. Thank you, Canada.
We shipped it down for you. It's so
Thanks, Canada.
So
Thank
nice.
you.
So anyway, we had not only, I wasn't watching Doctor Who back then, but
Whatever.
Yeah, some of us never watched Doctor Who, so that's okay.
all right.
Okay, wait.
Dead to me. Dead to me.
Okay,
Really?
We'll save that for another show.
Suddenly, I'm getting back into it. I cannot understand.
We're going to get back to this.
Yeah,
we have to at least touch on it.
Yeah.
But there was a, we had Star Trek. My brother was like a huge Star Trek fan.
Let me. I'm sorry,
go
James. Star Trek
Captain
is a
Jake
show
is the
where
USS Enterprise. 5-year
human
mission.
beings in the future.
Han Solo?
Yeah,
No, that's the other one.
See, now,
Oh.
now you're just being you're just being stupid right now.
I kid.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
But there was one show that was called Starlost.
I was just going to say, Starlost.
Starlost showed prime time.
Dula?
Yes, and it was Harlan Ellenson's first
Yes,
thing.
that's right. Yeah.
And it's a spaceship that seemed. I thought it crashed into Toronto. Frankly, the way that it was shot, it looked like it was shot in CHCH Hamilton, and it was
covering that up.
Covering that up, and it was like all these geodesic domes that had their own civilization that they don't know the other.
Right, all
things.
self-contained.
It's self-contained, and then this one guy who can just jump up and float down the hallway goes and visits all of these.
Keir
worlds.
Dullea from 2001: Space Odyssey.
Was that the guy?
He's Dave.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't realize
Yeah, that's
that.
right.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
kidding. Oh, look at that.
And we're all kindred spirits, especially Sean and I, when it comes to that show, because it's funny how like low rent it is.
God. Yeah.
It's almost, it looks cheaper than Doctor Who.
I know.
It was like
Can you believe that?
like
Cheaper than
$10
Doctor
they
Who.
spent on the
It's hard to
sets.
believe.
I know, but it's 1970s
Yeah,
video.
73,
73. Yeah.
It's like Sterling Hayden in one of them.
Yeah,
or?
yeah, so, Walter Koenig shows up in an episode or two.
Really?
Yeah.
We thought it was shot in Canada. The way it looked, it was like
It did have a weird look
was
to
a
it.
weird
Yeah.
Canadian
it was shown on
Ontario
video,
look.
I think, right?
Maybe it was.
maybe it
Yeah,
was.
it looked like someone kidnapped all those actors,
Yeah.
and forced them into a public access TV show.
Totally. And we're like, so we thought for sure, okay, this is a Canadian show because it looks so Canadian that we thought, oh, here's a really cool Canadian sci-fi show. It wasn't until later that we realized,
I was 7 years old and my mom loved that show and I just could not get into it. It was like
Really?
shot on videotape. It was really
Yeah,
slow moving.
By the way, it was called The Starlost.
Oh,
The
Thanks for
Starlost.
clearing that up.
oh my God.
He's our encyclopedia.
Good.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Okay, but there was another show.
Oh.
It wasn't sci-fi, but it was Monster.
Oh.
And it was Sunday, and it was Billy Van. Billy Van was a comedy writer on Sonny and Cher.
Oh,
He
okay.
worked with Steve Mann. He was a hilarious Canadian comedian.
The Hilarious House of
The
Frightenstein.
hilarious House of Frightenstein.
I've never heard of that.
Oh my gosh.
This is like the most
Great.
hilarious show.
That is so
It was in
obscure.
syndication.
Sean, of course, has all the episodes
yes.
on
I
a
do.
chip
On-
in his
on-
brain.
Probably does. Yeah.
So get this.
Yeah.
So the story is a vampire played by Billy Van,
Okay.
and Igor, who is this very large, white, bald guy who's his assistant, has to get Frankenstein to live again in order to get back to Transylvania. So that's sort of the vaguely overlining
It's
plot.
the series Bible right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your
okay.
series Bible. And he can never do it. Each time he has, I got a great idea, Igor. What is it, master? Oh, we put the thing in the, oh, it didn't work. Now we're stuck here again another year.
So it was it was a comedy.
It was a comedy. It was a
Oh.
comedy.
Yeah, it was kind
and
of like a
Billy
Sid and Marty Croft feel, a little bit to
little
it.
bit, but it was Billy Van doing all the characters.
He did all.
Yeah,
the characters?
yeah.
Yeah.
The Wolf, he had the Wolfman
He did the
DJ.
Wolfman. I am the Wolfman. Anyway, and we're gonna play a song by the Doors from 1967. Here he is, and they play the Doors.
Are you
What?
Yeah. And then they would go in front of a blue screen that had the
it's
psychedelic
great.
thing.
Yeah, it was like
and they would
laughing.
just dance.
Oh
They would
my-
just
Sean, do
dance
you
for
have
the
any of
entire
these?
thing.
Yeah, they're out on DVD. All
What?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
gotta
it's
get it. You gotta
fantastic.
see this.
It's
Oh, I'm
great.
getting this tomorrow.
I've
And then-
never heard of that.
I remember the psychedelia, and as
Yeah.
a little kid, I was just like, it lasted forever. And
It
it
lasted
was the
forever?
strangest thing to see.
It's
on
very,
television.
yeah. It was
and
like
your
really
Sunday
kind of like
morning.
old fashioned joke. It was like kind of like Laughing meets Monster Squad meets.
Oh,
you know,
and
it's just
such,
great.
And there were such great characters. Like he played female witch Griselda. Ooh, no. And they throw the hair back and like, oh my God, we're gonna make a delicious thing with the eye of Newt. Like and all the, oh my God, that's delicious.
And the narrator was like the narrator, the real old guy.
Oh no, that was the
Oh, no, it was
librarian.
yeah,
the librarian.
Vincent Price. Was,
Vincent Price
Vincent
narrated
Price
each
was in the
No.
beginning.
So they flew
Vincent,
up.
wait, Vincent Price was in it, or he did a voice?
No, he was in
He
it.
was in the beginning.
Really?
Yeah, they flew him up for 2 days to introduce each comedy character segment. And he'd have a skull and he would have a little poem.
Yeah.
And he would sort of sit on a balcony with a fake background, lightning
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And they go, they say the librarian. And then it would be like the librarian.
I'm having smoked salmon with capers.
Exactly. But it'd be a rhyming couplet. Like you'd have
Like Dr. Seuss. He'd
like
have,
kinda-
yeah.
And it'd be each one. And then it'd be like, and he would laugh.
This
And
sounds
it was-
incredible.
It's incredible.
great. It's great.
What's it called again? It's
It's
called.
called The Hilarious House of Frightenstein.
Oh, my-
It was so amazing. It's out of Canada. And then Billy Van did all, and they had to make it slightly educational. So they had
Yes.
this professor who come on, who was a science professor
It
from
was Billy Van again, right?
No.
Was
That
it?
guy who had the white gray hair, was an actual high school teacher out of Hamilton, Ontario. Who was this crazy guy going, and now I'm going to show you air pressure. Now you put the water and you heat it up, and that's the amazing thing about air pressure.
So he had real science stuff.
It had real science, because it had to be educational to be on Canadian kid television.
Oh, okay.
So it was Billy Van doing all this comedy around it, and then you had that educational, and then there was his Australian guy had all this makeup, ooga booga, which means I have a splitting headache. Okay, let's run the thing. Now, here it is. There's a wallaby. That's a wallaby.
The budget for this thing looked like public access.
Totally public
But it had a lot of
access.
energy to it.
There was so much energy, and it was so fast. And there's Harvey Wallbanger, the guy from the Dead Letter Office.
What?
Yeah, it was like all these
A character named after a cocktail.
Totally.
Unbelievable. And it's a children's show.
It's a children's show, and you watch
Yeah.
this, and you watched
Let's
it as a
pay a
kid.
visit to Jack Daniels.
Exactly. It's totally that. And you watch it as a kid, and then you watch it as a teenager, and then you watched it. Well, you kept watching it, and it just it had so many layers to it that it just got funnier and funnier.
Wow,
it
it sounds like a fever dream I would have as a kid,
Totally.
and then
You have it now.
it's wow, that sounds so great, and you've seen a lot of this.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if the entire series. I'm pretty sure the entire series is on DVD.
Oh, I need to see this.
You do
Buy
have
it
to
now on
see it.
Amazon Go.
But that was such a major
Wow,
influence.
thank you. That's
Yes.
like
So
that's like a little birthday present.
So basically, the world of science fiction television, we've covered two. Okay.
We covered those two very
we only
thoroughly,
have
though.
look
92
We've
more
got
to go.
another 2 hours.
Are there others? I thought that was it. Just those two.
Okay, you know what? I'm going
Yeah.
to throw you a bone here, Larry.
Okay,
There
sure.
you go.
Let's get back to some of the roots of science fiction television.
all right.
Yeah, there were shows like, was it Tales of the Unexplained, or what's
Tales of Tomorrow.
Tales of Tomorrow. That's what I'm thinking of. Tales of
Do you guys
Tomorrow,
remember-
or science fiction theater.
See, you
Right,
guys
right.
watch those?
Yeah,
No.
they're kind of dry, but they're actually based on actual sort of famous science fiction writers
Yeah.
and their stories. But where it really kind of came alive, I think, would be in the Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone.
Never heard of it.
That's what?
Well, come on, Sean. Hey, come on.
Neither is James.
Twilight Zone. You have seen Twilight Zone, have you not?
Not all the way through.
TV series.
all the way
TV
through.
series.
I
They're
shut it
only
off.
like 30 minutes apiece. They're like 25
I
minutes.
have seen Twilight Zone.
Oh,
I'm a
thank
fan. I love the Twilight.
Twilight Zone was definitely groundbreaking.
Created by Rod Serling. Started back in 1959. 59 went through
Sure.
like 64, 65. I mean, then this is...
Was that still live TV then?
A few of them were.
A few of them were. A few of the
They
early
did on
ones were.
Kinescope, right? They were
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
on,
Yeah, and
The
the-
Art Carney one, Night of the Meek. Was
Night of the Meek was definitely a kinescope one, yeah, and it looks it
And
too.
same, Ed Wynn, right, where he's trying to sell the silk to the devil, isn't that the one?
Yeah, like
What is that one?
you know what?
one for the angels.
You know
or-
what it is? And the one thing I love about that particular episode is when he's selling little toy astronauts, little wind-up metal astronauts, and it's my goal to try and find those little metal astronauts for my robot collection.
It's got to be in prop somewhere.
That angel, by the way, the angel of death that's trying to come from is one dumb angel of death.
Well, he
he started sweating.
Wynn
He
does a
started
great
sweating over
job.
his
He does
head.
a great job of like going through his sales pitch. You know,
selling silk.
But
from-
you know what was so?
How about shh, die?
You know, when I was watching all
That's
the,
what I
the
say to my salesman.
Go ahead.
Twilight Zones in syndication
Yeah.
as a kid,
Yeah.
and you're looking at them, and you're in all of them, and every new episode is like a revelation. And I saw an old interview with Rod Serling where he said, "Well, some of these were dogs," and I'm thinking, really, some of these weren't as good. But you think back on them, you look at them, yeah, some of them were not as
Well,
good.
don't forget though too. The show was on I think 4 or 5 seasons, and there was one entire season I think which they did hour episodes.
Yeah,
Right?
We're not quite
Not-
as effective.
and it didn't really
no.
work as well.
Some of them, the one with Robert Duvall in the Dollhouse,
that is a good. That is a
Some
good
good,
one.
but in general, the format worked better in the 30
minutes.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
think about he had to write all those. So he's on a typewriter smoking cigarettes. He had to do it Monday and Tuesday, get that script together. Wednesday rehearse, Thursday do a pre-shoot layout directing, and then go Friday to have that shot. And then he's got maybe a day to buy groceries, and then Sunday he's like back pulling it up.
But David, I mean, look, but in reality, though, I mean, Rod Serling, I think he went over all of these, and he did write many. He didn't write all of them. You did have great writers such as Ray Bradbury, George
Richard
Clayton Johnson,
Matheson,
Richard Matheson.
Yeah, I mean
Charles Beaumont.
I mean, these are just and this is when I mean these guys were younger and they were like hungry, and it just goes to show what great stuff they were doing early on.
And what was so great about the Twilight Zone is that you had, to do something that was kind of subversive, or sort of something that reflected
to make a statement.
The serious
ideas.
things that were happening
it's like
in the world,
similar to Star Trek.
You cloak them, you cloak them in science fiction.
Yeah.
Which is what science fiction always is. I always said this. Look, science fiction is a reflection of our society that we just tell in another time zone or whatever as a way to deal with what's going on.
Allegorical.
Allegorical, right?
And if you think about it, I mean, Twilight Zone, look, it started in 1959. Here we are in 2015, and still Twilight Zone is just as popular as it was back in the late 50s.
Well, this is a great time for Twilight Zone fans because there's a lot of products that have been released, little figures.
Oh, yeah. They're great figures. But not only that, I mean, Disney spends all this money to make the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror a ride that is actually at Disney California. And
remember that episode?
No. Hey,
where they dropped you down a building and then
let me tell you, have you been on it? Have you been on it?
Yes,
it's a great ride.
It is a great ride.
And actually, both those rides, the one in Florida and the one in California, Anaheim,
and Tokyo Disney Sea.
Yeah, but they're all a little different. They're something a little different from each other.
And are they referencing epissodes through the ride?
It's one. It's no. Think of it this way: the whole Tower of
There's
Terror.
a Steve Gutenberg movie.
It's look. There actually there is.
I got a kid who can talk.
Is.
I don't know. There's 3 bachelors and the kid can talk. Look, it's a horrible ride.
Hey, still, the ride itself.
3 men
and
a demon lady.
The point is that Twilight Zone is still as popular today as it was back then.
I'm just
And
curious
you're right.
how the ride goes.
You're right too. It's one of the things like when you watch the Sci-Fi Network.
Yeah.
It's one of the few shows that they will play that's black and white.
Right.
And they'll do marathons.
Yeah, I love
Thanksgiving, right?
I love and also
that's
sometimes
kinda cool.
New Year's they'll do this whole marathon where they just show one episode after the other, and I will sit and watch late at night. And I just watch 8 or 12 episodes.
They're still great. And
They are.
one of my favorites is because of I am such a misanthrope. I'm really not fond of people. Except for present company accepted.
Come on.
Yeah,
You don't
seriously.
have to couch this. Do not bother.
The Monsters on Maple Street. Such a great episode
Very
because
paranoid episode.
Which one is that, Matt?
that is the one where there's a bunch of people on the street, and all of a sudden, a series of events happen where they feel that they are being invaded by aliens. And so, what starts to happen is that every different house starts to exhibit weird things, like the lights are off, the power's out in the rest of the town, but in one house it's on. So that guy must be involved with the aliens. But then it goes off in that guy's house and goes on another person's house. So everybody starts to sort of suspect each other of being in league with the aliens or that they are the aliens, and they just end up just turning on each other. And I watch, and it's such a great episode, but then I watch it and I go, you didn't even need the aliens. All you gotta do is just turn the power out, and everyone's gonna freak out.
One of my favorite episodes has to be the Living Doll, and one of the reasons why I love that so much. This is Telly Savalas. Telly Savalas is he's like the stepfather.
Had hair a little bit.
Yeah, he had a little hair, but he's the stepfather. He had a new stepfather, and there's this little girl, and she has this doll, Talkie Tina, and
iconic.
And Talkie Tina it's so cute and it's so adorable.
But he was like a very cruel stepfather.
He was a screw,
right?
and the doll when you pull the string, it would say well, let's see, it'd say something like, let's see if I can do this here.
What?
Oh well, she doesn't. She actually said.
There you go.
Well,
But imagine
I love you. I love you very much. I love you very much.
It's
and he
a
doesn't
slow build.
It's a slow build. And then what's
You don't
really
open with "I'll be sorry."
no.
You don't know
That's weird, kid.
What's great though is he hates the doll. The girl loves the doll, and he tries to get rid of the doll.
Right,
and then the doll keeps saying some freaky
Keeps
stuff.
coming back.
Yeah.
how.
What?
Yeah.
Wow,
And then,
that's a good
yeah.
thread. So where'd you get that Talking Tina cup?
He made it.
No. So what's great is
All the time in the world.
So
I'm making every prop for Twilight
We were talking
Zone.
about Twilight Zone. I mean, toys and stuff. There's this great Talkie Tina doll. It's about 18 inches, and it looks just like
It totally creepy, and it's green skinned.
No. It's kind of black and white. It's and it has actual dialogue from the episode done by June Foray. The
Who was
voiceover.
Rocky.
Sylvester
Stallone.
Yeah.
No, Rocky the Flying Squirrel, Sean. You know better than that.
Adrian?
She dubbed Sylvester Stallone's voice in Rocky.
Knock out Apollo Creed.
Let's just say that this is the greatest toy. I love this
That is
thing.
awesome.
It is very cool.
And actually, believe it or not, this is my daughter's though.
Oh.
This actually sits in my daughter's room.
Does that
Why-
mean you're
Wow.
not due on this earth for very long? You're going to sit up the stairs and fall
Why
and
are
step
you-
on her?
Well, when I
You're haunting your own child.
I love you very much.
yes,
That's how, see, that's where you start.
That's where you start.
and then it turns to.
Well,
Talkie Tina, and I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, is that the greatest?
That's awesome.
see, I like a kid that just starts with "I'm going to kill you," because then I know where we stand.
I'm talking Tina.
The great thing about
All right,
What about
you
your
know what? I
favorite-
respect that.
You're very good.
I
At
made
that.
some mistakes in my life.
What?
The great thing about the show, there's a very low budget show, but the writing was so good. And
Yes.
even though it was it was known for its twist endings, they weren't all twist endings, but
Right.
they had some awesome ones too.
And not every
which,
show had to be preachy and allegorical.
Right.
Some of them, like the Talkie Tina one, they just went straight for the guy.
Straight horror.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also one of my favorite ones is To Serve Man,
Oh yeah, right.
which is
Although, but go on.
but
That's a twist.
These so-called benevolent aliens land on Earth, and the main leader, played by Richard Kiel,
Yeah.
the Canamites,
Right.
and they were these very tall aliens who proposed that we're going to solve all diseases for you guys. We're going to give you all the resources you need, and you're welcome to come visit us on our planet.
Right.
And even here's a book, kind of as our gesture of goodwill. It was all in alien language.
Right.
Now, do they? I don't mean to correct you, but I thought they accidentally
You're right.
leave
They
the
kinda
book
leave the book,
behind.
and
Oh,
they-
right,
and these kind
accidentally.
of like
Yeah.
interpreters kind of get the book, and they kind of want to study the book and everything. And they finally cracked the title of the book, which is "To Serve Man." It's like, oh wow, that's cool. It's very that sounds
Particularly
good.
when they figured out 2 cups sugar. Like was right. That is fucking weird.
Exactly.
Put that in.
Because that's the final line, which is great. It's like
Because you need savory and sweet.
Exactly.
the whole idea is that they're going aboard and like it's basically it's a cookbook. It's
a cookbook,
They're
the
gonna
famous
just cook us
line.
all.
Spoiler alert!
I think
yeah.
everybody's seen that movie.
It's like, but
great.
but that's one that kind of cracks me up too. Is that the idea that there's these aliens just walking around with their cookbook?
Delicious. Yeah, exactly. You know, Joseph Cotton, though, in that weird one where he takes the commuter train and he gets off at a magical 1870s town.
Was that? I don't
yeah.
think that
Was
was
it
Joseph Cotton.
or,
It's the
what-
guy that you get when you can't get
Joseph Cotton.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, we're talking about Willoughby, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Last Stop Willoughby.
I like that
Joseph
episode.
Cotton.
I love that one. It's not Joseph Cotton.
No, that
That's
was
a-
the guy who was nominated for the Oscar for They Shoot Horses, Don't They? I can't remember his
I can't
name.
remember.
Joseph Cotton.
It's a different Joseph Cotton.
No, because it's called Willoughby, but it wasn't really
One of my favorites.
It's not really Twilight Zone. It was just sort of this nostalgic thing, and then he ends up in a snowdrift.
Well-
Spoiler alert.
no.
Dean.
The story really is that he's got this kind of shrewish wife.
Right, it's
He's
a
working at
hellish
this
lifestyle.
job where like the new hotshot, young Turks are coming in and taking
Right.
all his business, and
And he's
he
in a
never
suburban hill life. So
Yeah, and he never really wanted this life anyway, and nobody understands him, and he keeps having this dream when he's on this train where he stops off and he goes to this wonderful
Magical town.
Yeah, magical town,
He
nice.
deserves everybody's nice.
It's a simpler
A
time.
simpler town,
Yeah.
simpler time.
nostalgic.
Yeah, and then finally he's able to get off the train.
Yeah.
And he has this big blowout at the job and finally falls asleep and then ends up being able to get off the train and go into the town.
Right.
And then you find out that he actually just jumped off the train in real life and died. and, then,
ending.
and then the ending is
Was that
James Daly.
James Daly.
and at the
Dr.
end
Sheridan.
you see that that he's being picked up by Willoughby Mortuary on the side of the car.
Ironic.
You know,
Yeah.
the best thing about Twilight Zone the movie was the framing device. The
titles?
the hitchhiker with Albert Brooks and Dan Aykroyd.
That is the best part.
yeah,
You're right.
absolutely, that's
You're
the best
absolutely
part.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
reminiscing about all these old episodes, and that's
Yeah.
what people do. They say, "I remember that. That was great. Who was that?"
Yeah,
Right.
kick the can. I didn't like that the first time around. Really?
Yeah,
We're gonna
of all
now
things to remake.
we're gonna Spielberg size it.
See, it's funny you should say it because I didn't mind the first kick the can in the movie, which I mean, our topic is television, but it was like
It's
too
all
much.
right.
No,
Yeah.
it was too much. In the movie, it was too much. It was too
Yeah.
much. I was
The
not.
thing is, Twilight Zone we could do a whole episode just on Twilight Zone, and we
And
probably
maybe we will.
Maybe
Maybe.
we
Well,
will.
now if we're gonna talk about. We've talked about Twilight Zone a little
Right.
bit. Now we have to move on to the sort of, I would say it's sort of sister show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which would be The Outer Limits.
Outer Limits.
There is
Now-
nothing wrong with your television set.
Yeah. Now, that show, it's interesting when I'd watch Twilight Zones, and there was a sort of a feeling of comfort that I always had watching that show. When it got to The Outer Limits, I was scared right from the very beginning.
Yeah, Matt, I'm with you. And you know what's funny is let's see, this went from like 63 to 65. It didn't last as many years.
Right.
And Rod Serling was Joseph Stefano, responsible for writing Psycho.
But you didn't have,
Leslie Stevens is the creator.
The screenplay.
but you didn't have the comforting presence of a Rod Serling. Instead, you just had this narration in the opening titles, and then you did not have a host.
And there's no ender to it. There was nobody really wrapping it up.
Well, it was the control voice.
They do say some stuff that kind of, it doesn't necessarily wrap it up. It kind of just gives you these options, or it's like, well, this is what could,
or like warnings.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to happen.
But it's like, stay tuned for the next show after this.
No,
no.
They had endings, but they tended to be dark. I mean, just the whole feeling of that show was like a horror movie.
It was
The
very
music
moody,
alone,
very
which was Dominic
Frontier. Dominic Frontier.
Great music.
Yeah.
Dominic Frontier?
Frontiera.
Thank you, James.
Thanks.
He did the Flying Nun theme.
Another classic science fiction television show.
Another classic horror movie.
Yes.
Another horror TV show.
Sci-fi.
A nun that can fly.
That's sci-fi.
Spreading guilt through the air.
I'll cross it
guilt
off my
and
list.
punishment.
Okay.
The funny thing is that Outer Limits did have a lot of great episodes.
Raining death down with rulers.
I will rule my judgment upon thee with my hat of wings.
So the Outer Limits, it did have a lot of really great episodes. No. Like, think about it. You had Harlan Ellison. Ellison, great writer, deemed with the glass hand.
Actually.
Yes. Shot at the Bradbury, which is downstairs.
Yes, Bradbury Building.
Where they
Still
film
there.
like Blade Runner and lots of other movies.
Blade Runner and that horrible Twix commercial. That's
Oh, that one,
Yeah.
delicious.
But did that win an Emmy?
It won.
Yeah.
It won.
I think it was a second season, I think, too. Right.
What Robert Culp's Man with the Glass Hand?
Yes,
Yeah.
Demon with the Glass Hand, where he's this.
That got an Emmy?
It did win some
Or
awards.
Writers Award.
It did win
might
some
have been
Writers
the
Award.
Yeah, might have been the Writers Award.
One of my favorite episodes of the Outer Limits has to be The Sixth Finger, and this is the one with David.
I love that one. Yes,
and
so,
Boleyn. Oh no!
No. What's really cool about that episode is you have a scientist who's he's experimenting with like advancement of
Evolution.
Yeah. So here you got this kind of dim-witted guy that he puts in this machine.
Well, he's not really dim-witted.
He's not educated. He's not educated.
There you go.
So they put him in this machine, and it supposedly advances him, and his head gets like a little bigger. His mind starts to expand.
But he also gets colder, and
yes,
he loses touch with humanity, and he's always been kind of down on humanity anyway.
Yes, it's true. But what's so great is as he starts to advance, and he starts to get more upset with humanity, and
more
his
impatience with it.
His hand starts to grow the digit sixth finger, and his head kind of turns into something like almost alien-like. Right. And there's this great moment. I love this great line when he now has like the power of like telepathy almost. He can move things with
telekinesis.
His mind. And there's these cops that come by. And they're going to attack him, and he looks at him and goes, "Your ignorance makes me ill and angry." and then makes.
I don't know how many times I've said
Oh
that.
my God! I love. Well, my wife.
I say that walking down the street.
My wife and I say that to each other every once in a while.
Ill and angry.
Yes, ignorance makes me ill and angry. But and
Officer,
do you want coffee?
is there somebody else I can talk to, officer?
Sideshows actually come out. The Sideshow Toy Company actually came out with a lot of great
they
figures.
They did.
Fantastic figures.
I mean, I've got to hand it to them. They don't do these figures much anymore, but when they were doing these figures, they did a fabulous job. They
don't do them at all anymore.
No. But they did Six Finger. They did.
Unlike Twilight Zone 2, Outer Limits was an hour show.
Yeah.
It worked very well for an hour. And it was more darker. It was more scarier. And it was kind of, the first season at least, was kind of a monster of the week or an alien of the week.
Yeah.
They got more into another angle within the second season for the most part. Like Demon with the Glass Hand, for instance, was a second season. It was a little more...
But they had a lot of like Academy Award-winning cinematographers. Conrad Hall.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah,
Right.
Conrad Hall, and it really just had this
Standalone feel.
Yeah, and gothic film noir, like a lot of shadows, and just scary right from the get go.
Yeah,
and the guy who was the control voice, which probably
you should
only
know that?
Sean knows, but no, he doesn't. The great Sean Sheridan doesn't.
Did you not know that voice? Oh my God!
But he was so good, and he just had this very kind kind of
now the Outer Limits
man is a speck in the universe.
No, Outer
That
Limits
sounds like Alan Rickman.
That's
what Alan Rickman impersonated.
Now, Outer Limits was, even though it lasted only 2 seasons, it was popular in the world.
I think it was more than 2 seasons.
No.
3.
No, so
Was
it was
60.
2 or 3. Okay, but it still had this cult status, and
Yes.
it was brought back in what like the year 2000.
Up in Canada? Yeah, they
no,
were
no, no. Was it? Well, they may have shot it in
That's
Canada.
right. Yes.
It's syndicated,
Yeah, you're right.
right?
It was
Yeah,
horrible.
yeah.
And they're like, and those
They're okay.
some of those are
You know what-
they're hit and miss.
You know what's
I,
too?
I
you
think
know
I
what?
auditioned for a couple of them. They were
Did you
sucky.
really?
Yeah.
Matt, you know what bugged
Oh,
me
I
about
love
them?
those.
No. Matt, you know what got me about those ones? The new Outer Limits. There was something because it was shot in color. And there was something that the black and white
I agree.
filming of the original
Yeah,
Outer Limits,
totally.
that's one of the elements that just makes it so much more creepier. And
Yeah.
they couldn't really, and also there was dark shadows and stuff. And whereas the one in color that came in 2000, it's all light, it's all
Yeah,
lit
yeah,
up.
yeah. It's all
And-
lit up.
Yeah,
And it felt like that stupid Tales from the Crypt sort of thing. It was like
Well,
around the tail end of
too
that. sort of
cartoony,
thing.
yeah.
Very
Yeah.
too
I know in
cartoony.
the 80s they brought back all the anthologies, like the Alfred Hitchcock Presents and the Twilight Zone.
they brought the Twilight Zone
and
back,
everything was
yeah.
in color on network TV, and it just didn't
Wasn't
work.
the same.
But remember,
Yeah.
like Tales from the Dark Side.
Yeah,
Like, that was
kind of
that was
enjoyed.
right.
that was low rent, but I always kind of enjoyed those because it was like, boy, you guys have $5, but you're really trying. You know?
They were more enjoyable just for that reason.
Yes, and it's kind of the way I felt about the original Doctor Who. Which now everybody loves Doctor Who now because there's a lot of money being
They
pumped.
bit by
There's a lot of people, Larry.
No,
Who enjoyed the Doctor
No, I
Who.
agree. I agree. In fairness, I do want to say that Doctor Who is one of those shows that it has the popularity of it has grown, and there are
It's probably
millions
it's the
of
longest
people.
running
Yeah,
sci-fi TV series.
longer
right?
longer than Star Trek.
I mean,
If
it
you
has
think
to be,
about
right?
it.
Yeah, I mean, like not continuous, but as
That's an
You
idea.
know,
as an idea that has become. I mean, you could say that Star Trek kind of is in the.
But as far as
Hey.
actual seasons of a show,
Yeah.
I mean, counting every. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
saying
Okay,
those continue.
and that they all
Continuity.
connect.
Now-
that it's all that the continuity is
Now,
all
Sean,
the same.
Sean, for those of us who don't exactly know exactly what Doctor Who is, can you tell us what? Or Matt, can you tell me what Doctor Who?
Why are you going to Sean?
He's our.
He doesn't even know who the control voice is.
But he's
Fuck
normally
him.
he's normally our encyclopedia.
I'm tired of his bullshit.
He knows a lot about Doctor Who.
I do. Matt
All right,
probably knows even more, though. I'd say.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Who fan,
D-
please.
He doesn't even know what Doctor Who is.
Yes, Mr. Whovian.
Doctor Who, the basic premise is there's a Time Lord. He's a time traveler who travels through time and space. He usually picks up a couple, usually humans.
Chicks.
Chicks, yeah, a lot of chicks.
rotates through them.
Yeah, there's sometimes there are guys, but I think he prefers the
Whoa.
ladies.
Yes,
and they
couples.
travel with him
Okay.
through time and space, and they can solve things that happened in time. Like they go back. There's historical episodes where they go back to the Aztecs,
Right.
And
The
then there are
cavemen.
ones where they go, the very first episode called "The Unearthly Child,"
Really?
is where they go back to the Stone Age,
Right.
And then the original idea for Doctor Who was they wanted it to be this kind of like sort of highbrow educational kind of
right.
thing.
It was to teach you about history.
Yeah, and then the second story was about the Daleks.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
The
that
kids were
changed
crazy.
everything.
The
Right,
Daleks
right.
are the
The
robots.
Daleks
the evil
are
robots.
cyborg robots.
Oh, they're cyborgs.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
cyborgs.
And what do
There's-
they say?
There's a little mutant.
What?
Right, go.
Let's get the trademark.
No.
That's a good one, but not the one I'm thinking of. There we go.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah, and they're scary. And I got into Doctor Who not through television.
Through the action figures?
No, when I was growing up, we used to watch this show, Creature Features,
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
hosted by Bob Wilkins, and we all love it. And every once in a while, they'd put on these movies starring Peter Cushing.
Ah.
And Peter Cushing was Doctor Who.
Yeah.
and he would fight the Daleks, and that's all I knew of Doctor Who.
These
There
are
was
like
a movie.
60s movies. That were
60s
spin-offs.
movies,
1 hour
Technicolor,
thing. How many
kind of groovy.
Did
like
he do one or two? I thought,
two of them?
He did two. I
They
remember
did Doctor Who and the Daleks and Daleks Invasion Earth. Yeah.
2000.
Was Peter Cushing ever Doctor Who on TV or just
No,
movies?
he was
No,
only
he's a big
he was
star.
my he was
He was
my
a big star.
He was my first Doctor, and so but I fell in love with the Daleks. I thought these are the greatest things ever, and then I found out way later that there was this whole TV show, and I got into it with Tom Baker. Who is
A lot of
arguably
people of our generation.
It
was the
fourth-
their,
the fourth
yeah,
Doctor.
it's like
The
their
scarf.
favorite Doctor. He was like the cool Doctor, the funny one, the one that really came off
As a
more
charming.
and more like an alien than the
Yes.
rest of them.
But also, one of the key things about the show, which is so genius, whoever thought this up after the first Doctor, was the whole idea is that, okay, we're gonna retire this actor.
William Hartnell,
Yeah,
the first
William
Doctor,
Hartnell.
who was getting kind of
Yes.
old and
Long in the tooth.
not so good with his lines and everything.
But
And
the
finally,
idea was that this Doctor Who is this alien, this from Gallifrey, he would regenerate into a new body.
Yeah.
So that whole idea is like, wait a minute, we can
run
frickin'
this
do Doctor
ever.
forever. He just regenerates into
and
a new
what a
character.
genius
That's
idea.
a great
So-
idea.
It's like
Great
different
idea.
actors playing James Bond.
Totally.
Yes, yeah.
Just
They
the
should have
same
done that
way.
with James Bond. He regenerates.
I wasn't
Dr.
into,
Bond.
I wasn't into Doctor Who until they did the 2-hour televised movie of the making of Doctor Who in the first episodes, where they had the female producer.
You mean just recently? Yeah,
Yeah,
the whole,
just
the whole
recently.
Verity Lambert.
Yeah.
It was like
That was
that was
cool.
a really great. I'm
Yes.
like,
Yeah,
this
that
is
was
really
good.
fascinating how it all came together. And that senior producer was this Canadian guy, just going, "Hey, we really like your stuff. Hey, go be a producer. Come on, everybody!"
Yeah.
Like this whole like cheese
and
thing. It was like-
here's
History
this
was made.
Yeah.
woman executive producer
who's out of over her head. It seems.
yeah, and allowed to get this thing and being rewarded. And
yeah, like
it's
the BBC would only do.
And it's an amazing show that's managed to, last
Yeah.
all this time. And then, God bless Russell T. Davis, able to, when he was asked, he had done all these shows like Queer as Folk, and they asked him, well, what do you want to do now? And he goes, I want to do Doctor Who. And they're like, what? And I love Doctor Who. And that's the guy that you get to do Doctor Who.
The guy who loves
Yeah,
Doctor Who.
hey, show business.
Get the guy who loves the
Get
thing.
the guy who loves the thing
Yeah.
to do the
It is
thing.
immensely popular now. I mean, I have a niece who's 13 years old in Greenfield, Massachusetts, and she's obsessed with Doctor Who. A couple of years ago, it was Harry Potter, but now it's Doctor Who. And the one thing she wanted as like a Christmas gift or a birthday gift was all this Doctor Who paraphernalia, and I got it for her, and I was like her hero. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, it's my pleasure. This is cool.
But you have to admit though. I mean, in the early days of Doctor Who, I mean, it was limited budget. They
Very
there were
small
things made.
budgets.
But now, Matt, because of the popularity, they're selling toys now. I mean,
Yeah.
T-shirts, scarves. I mean, the whole
So much.
kit and caboodle. I mean, their budgets now are pretty big.
Oh yeah, and it's one of those things that you see is that a great idea is a great idea, and and one thing that and I love the new ones for the most part, especially like the David Tennant years are just brilliant. They're
great.
Right.
But one thing I really respected about the early Doctor Who's is that you go back to those episodes, and especially going back and seeing it through the eyes of the time.
Right.
And watching it and going, okay, they didn't have that much money.
Right.
This is how they did TV back then. Here's Tom Baker. Here's a bunch of actors from the Royal Shakespearean Company.
Right.
And they are acting their fucking asses off.
Really.
And
Really.
giving it their all. And because of the acting, because of the stories and the performance, the low rent aspect of it just kind of falls in the background. You
Really?
you don't
Totally
really
does.
notice it as
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, wow, this is the coolest science fiction play ever.
And because on our Roku, we've been following older incarnations of Doctor Who, and Fraser Hines, who's now
Fraser Hines,
who's
yeah.
who's on on the convention circuit. So I'm kind of
Sure.
friends with him now, and he's selling these
Jamie.
pictures- and he's got pictures of him in a kilt in the '60s, and I'm like, what is this from? And then I finally see the show.
I used to role play with my girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. Really odd story, but here, $20 if you want one.
I can give you some numbers too if you need them.
He's totally hilarious. Yeah, it's kind of cool. So I'm watching it now, the older episodes, and as well as the present ones. So
I mean, if you mentioned sci-fi TV, I mean, other than of course, Star Trek, which you covered a lot in another podcast, but like Twilight Zone, Doctor Who, and Our Limits, those are three big ones.
Yeah, and we didn't. I know we didn't talk about in our last Star Trek podcast, but we briefly touched upon Enterprise,
very briefly. Yeah,
here we go.
which I really love.
Did you?
I love it, and I'll tell you.
Interesting.
And here's the thing: is that I didn't love it when it first came out.
Oh.
And it was mainly because of that theme song.
The song.
The song was so horrible. It's been a long
Really? You know what? Matt, no, Matt.
It
the
was
song
that
didn't-
or
no, no, no.
Airwolf.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is this?
No, the song didn't bother me. It really didn't
But
bother
you-
me that much.
What?
I know. No, it really didn't. It really didn't bother me that much. I
That
understand.
scares me.
I understand it bothered a lot of Star Trek fans, and I totally get it. I mean, we've been used to having this great, symphonic themes, and here we get this.
Yeah.
And I guess, they're trying to shake it up a little bit, but maybe they shouldn't have shaken it up that much. But it didn't turn me off from the show.
It sounds to me like that Diane Warren theme sounds just so much like a like or like a ketchup commercial jingle. Anticipation.
But Matt, they listened, they heard the fans, because I think after a while, I forget how many seasons did it have? Like five?
4.
Is it 4? Oh, 4.
Unfortunately,
No,
4.
no, and so they got rid of the voice.
I
Did they, Sean?
I don't remember.
Oh, that's right, because Sean.
I
Sean stopped
honestly
watching
don't
after
remember.
I was not a
Because
huge
this
fan
is-
of
I have-
Enterprise. I really
Oh,
wasn't.
okay, you were not a huge fan.
No, but I'll tell you, like, what I do now, because I've recently been going through them again.
Yeah.
And I still can't, like, I still have to fast forward to this theme song because it puts me in a dark place. Like, you know, I want to throw cold water at my cat. You know, like, and that's no good.
So,
right?
look, the neat thing about Enterprise, for the people who don't know, is it takes place in the Star Trek universe. This is before anything, and you know, this is before Captain.
It's like
Kirk.
right after,
It's like-
kind of like final.
They just found the warp drive, right? Or whatever.
First contact.
It's like the
Yeah,
Wild
yeah,
West, where like they're really out there for the first
For
time,
the very
right,
first
dangerous
time.
and, right?
And what's so great about it is you have.
It's a great concept.
It's a great concept, and the first. A lot of people kind of diss the first season, but the first season is mainly just Captain Archer, who was played by Scott Bakula.
from
Bakula.
Quantum Leap.
Yeah,
Yes.
and his crew, and they are under the thumb of the Vulcans.
Yeah.
The Vulcans have now revealed themselves because they now know that human beings have warp drive. But now what they're doing is the Vulcans are breathing down their neck because they don't think humans are smart enough to handle
warp drive.
any of this, handle space travel,
Yeah.
handle warp drive.
Yeah.
And it's so great because it's that first season is just this constant like pushback
Yeah.
between the two species
As
and
they
it-
negotiate their bilingual,
Treaty.
the
yeah,
treaty,
they sort of,
whatever.
and then just gradually developed respect for each other,
Right, the friendship.
and the fact that he has this science officer T'Pol, who is initially sort of a Vulcan mole,
Yeah.
Right.
but gradually she understands, like, oh, there's more to these humans than I thought.
Right.
And it just gets so good, and I'm telling you, if you love the original Star Trek,
Which I do.
it is a love letter to fans of the original Star Trek. They get into stuff where they explain, they have a scientific reason why why there was a whole time where Klingons looked like kind of more human.
Yeah.
There's a whole storyline.
Evolutionary.
There's a whole storyline.
cool.
It's so
That's
great.
great. That's
They go
awesome.
into the origins of Khan.
Mm-hmm.
Who did Dominic Keating play? Because I never watched this, but Dominic Keating was
that's
like
the,
he's at the conventions all the
yeah,
time.
he's the
Isn't that the engineer?
no, he's
commander.
the weapons guy.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's a weapons guy. Yeah.
There's also a sub story. Like, talk about spoiler alert. If you've never seen this, and a lot of people haven't
I
because
haven't.
of the feedback that show got. There's a
The
whole
soundtrack.
There's a. I tell you that song. I couldn't.
I got it on CD. I don't know.
Sometimes I just go into a room and I just play it on a loop, and I just beat my head up against the
Right,
wall
while I'm working out.
Yeah,
definitely.
it's like in Misery in the book where she has her screaming room. Yeah, that's what I do. But it's a great show, and again, like they do stuff with the mirror universe. They bring back the Gorn.
Yeah. See, the funny thing is, I was one of these fans who I watched it. I didn't mind the song as much as you, but I tried to stick with it for the first year, and then there was just something about it that
That's
I couldn't
kind of
get
what
past.
I did too. I mean,
Yeah.
I probably should, on your recommendation,
Yes,
I probably
yes.
should watch some of the
I'm
later
go-
seasons.
yes,
'cause
I'm going
the first
to-
season didn't really do much for me.
Yeah,
There's a couple good episodes, I thought. But
I agree, but I like, I've listened to you about Deep Space Nine. I'm going to watch that, and I am going to take another second look to Enterprise. I guess the key is to fast forward through the song, and maybe I'll feel differently. Is that what I'll do?
Everyone listening, please fast forward through the song and watch that show.
Or better
it's only
yet,
4 seasons. So-
Record your own version and email it to me.
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea. That's right. I just email it to Matt directly. That's the
Yeah.
second listen to it over and
Yeah,
over
that's
again.
what I do. I have I've gotten a song by the band Glucifer, and I just put that there.
Lucifer.
Yeah, there's a band
With blue and
it's what-
silver. Lucifer.
Glucifer, one of my favorite bands, actually. Yeah.
So let's see. So that's
Metal-
X Files, Lone Gunman, Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, Doctor Who, and Enterprise. So that's
Right.
6
Right.
out of the.
Come on, keep going.
Well,
hey,
Come on.
400
Hey, we haven't even done a shot yet.
can't,
Oh, let's get to the shot.
You got another half hour in you, right?
Are
we
they,
can't-
people
what
still
about,
listening?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Sean.
they're listening.
What is it, Sean?
we can't talk about sci-fi TV without talking about Irwin Allen, right?
I mean, see, that's like a whole episode
Lost in
right there,
Space,
buddy.
Land of the Giants, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Time Tunnel.
Not to
All the
brag.
same show in different locations.
Pretty much.
No. I don't think so.
Yes.
No.
Yeah,
no,
I think so.
No.
But for a while-
Lost in
Same
Space.
set.
But
Lost
for a
in
while,
Space.
he ruled the airways with
He
sci-fi
did.
TV,
He was
right?
huge. He was like Aaron
I mean,
Spelling.
That's how he
kind of.
That's how
Didn't he sort of create the modern disaster film?
Well, yeah. Poseidon
Towering
Adventure.
Inferno.
Yeah.
Poseidon Adventure was first.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And
Tower
then-
Which is a great
Inferno.
movie. The original is fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And in fact, me and my my friend are planning to do a 2-man stage version of Poseidon Adventure.
Oh, I need to be there.
Like,
Can I buy a ticket right now?
I have got to see that.
Do I need to go to Australia?
And there'd be like aquariums on wheels where we swim underwater, and like we're holding our breath.
That's
like,
fantastic.
the whole thing. So, I know you can see it, right? So, yeah, Poseidon Adventure. Well, okay, I don't want to brag. But I have the model spaceship still in plastic from Land of the Giants with a
The
signed
Spindrift?
Yes, the Spindrift with a signed photo by Don, the guy from the thing, saying, I forgot Don's last name. Sorry, Don.
Dean's been drinking. Dean's been drinking. Let's cut him a little slack.
I was going to say Don Lemon, but that's
no.
not right.
Don Lemon.
That's not him.
Don.
But you have. But it's never been opened. It's never been
opened.
Oh,
Nice,
yes.
Larry's
It's-
excited.
That's yes.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a man after my
sitting
own
there.
heart.
See,
Yeah.
Larry likes things that no one can enjoy.
No, I like things in pristine condition.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I like.
You like the
I
idea
can
of
enjoy-
things.
no,
Why not
I-
just leave them in the store
I
then?
because I don't have it. I get
They exist.
I get plenty of enjoyment looking at it on a shelf.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I bought a store full of models and I sealed it off. And just like, that's
Everything that I have, all my action figures, I take out of the package, I run them through my crotch, and now,
Oh, my
now my
God.
scent is on them. They are mine.
You know, I am never buying.
mint in package. Oh no!
I am never
No.
buying a figure from you.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
never. I don't even know why.
That's a very odd garage sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
How much for this? 25 cents.
It's
And
got a
through my-
pube on it.
Still 25
Okay,
cents.
Don Matheson.
You're getting a deal.
Don Matheson, thank you. I'm sorry, Don
I
Matheson.
knew
if you're
Sean
listening.
would figure that
Don
one out.
Matheson
There's two
is
things
correct.
that I love about Lost in Space. One of them is the interplay between Dr. Smith and the robot,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is priceless.
Yes.
The other one is the theme music by Johnny Williams, who became John Williams.
John Williams, the better theme song.
Two different
Yes.
types
there's
of
two.
themes.
There's two.
right?
I love the first one, and I like the second one. The first one
Is that the
is-
dun, 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 dun,
that's the second one.
That's the second one.
That's the second one.
That's the one everyone remembers.
Yeah, no, I remember.
I love both of them, and the thing of it is that you can even see a trace of the brilliance in both that John Williams would bring to Star Wars and all these other scores. And working for Irwin Allen, I mean, Williams' first one of his first serious symphonic scores was the Poseidon Adventure.
Right, great score.
Jerry Goldsmith also basically started. I mean, they were both at Fox, but Goldsmith also started working for Irwin Allen early on, and they both became like the biggest genre of film composers in the 70s and
Totally.
80s.
You know what I have?
I just have a question for James. The first theme of Lost in Space.
Do it for us.
The- It's like the show is on right now.
Oh my god! How many has he had? How many?
We have to do our shot quick
okay,
here.
so-
but let me ask you though. So was that first theme John Williams as well, or was that?
Yeah.
Really was.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he also did the other ones, right? Land of the
Yes,
Giants and
all
Voices
the
Beyond
all
the
the
Sea.
early Irwin
Yeah.
Allens were done.
You know, I
by
have to
Wow.
admit though, even as a little kid, Lost in Space for me was just too silly.
Yeah.
it was. It started out the first few episodes, maybe the first half of the first season was not so silly.
It was
but
black
just-
and white, John,
yeah,
wasn't it?
But
a
it was
little
just
more
too
serious.
silly, and,
Yeah.
and also. It always bugged me that they just kept Dr. Smith because realistically, after the first 3 episodes, they would have just shot the.
He would have
fuck
showed.
He literally did not. He literally tried to kill everybody.
I know.
I mean,
that's a
every
good point.
episode.
Yeah, you know, the one thing about it for me, Sean, is I agree with you. To me, I did find it a little silly, but I kept going back to I love the robot.
Robot was great.
The
Robot was
robot
the best thing.
played by Bob May.
Right.
Bob May.
And what was the robot's actual name?
Well, he has
though?
2 names.
Right.
There's-
Robbie?
No.
Oh,
Gosh.
Robbie the
Tweety.
robot.
No.
Twinkie, right?
No.
Steve.
God, okay. I better do this before my head explodes.
the robot.
One was he was called
Danger, Will Robinson.
YM3.
YM3, okay.
And B9.
You know why was it both? Would
Now
they just
that
change it?
I can't tell you, but I can tell you
Listeners,
that the
let us
robot.
know why
No.
it
I got
changed.
it before I hit James in the face, and that's there is a couple episodes where
Ooh,
Robbie the robot.
maybe you-
from
maybe you
Hey,
don't get a shot.
Quiet. Robbie the robot from Forbidden Planet actually has a battle. It's
That's
War
right.
of the
He
Robots.
is in an Actually,
And he-
wait for a second. Actually, Robbie the Robot was also in an episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yes, he was.
Right?
Yes,
At least
he was.
one episode, yeah.
And
So
also,
how do you figure that?
And also,
How does that work
And
into the
also,
canon?
Columbo, Sean, and Columbo. How do you like that?
right.
That's
That's
right.
a good episode,
Which is a
too.
classic science fiction.
The canon
Jose
Twilight
Ferrer.
Zone Lost in Space crossover episode.
we-
probably my favorite.
Look, I can say, we can probably do a whole episode on Lost in Space.
we are
alone.
right
and
now.
No, we're not going to do it now because it's been
Did
over.
you ever see that comedian do Dr. Smith doing poetry?
No, do it,
He's
please.
just like, twinkle, twinkle, little star. How I wonder where you are. Who is that? Come on, man. I can see you.
Whoever that is, that's awesome. Yeah.
I think that's why they kept Dr. Smith, because there was something about the chemistry between Dr. Smith and that deadpan robot that was just perfect.
Totally.
But I would argue that, like, so now the very first season of Lost in Space, they were sort of riding that line between whether they do kind of a more serious science fiction
they
show.
were, right.
And then they had sort of little comedic overtones. But when they finally realized that, like, oh, Dr. Smith is the star of the show.
Because
What do you want to do, Dr. Smith? I don't know. I just want to go through every episode. Okay, do it.
You
I think-
bubbly-headed booby.
I think every single episode of the credits, if I'm not mistaken, it never changed. He was always special guest star
Yes,
Jonathan
special guest,
Harris,
yes.
right?
Yes.
While you guys were watching Star Trek, I was watching Lost in Space.
And then there was that episode where the man's a carrot, the talking carrot.
Oh, that was
Oh, my
Gene. That's a
God.
famous episode.
That's
I know, right?
That's the last one, right?
That's the last
The Great
one.
Vegetable
Right.
War,
And you know
Great
the story
Vegetable
behind
War or
that.
something like
No, I thought that was Dr. Smith wanting that.
No.
I'm sure he did,
The
but
cast could not keep a straight face,
I wonder
and the
why.
director was pissed.
And it's
At
on camera.
It's on camera. Guy Williams. He was pissed at Guy Williams. He was pissed at
it's the guy Don. It's
Don Goddard.
Mark Goddard. Mark Goddard.
He was pissed at him.
Because he's
And-
laughing. If you watch that episode, you can actually see him laugh
Really?
in the take.
Yeah.
Like apparently that was like the best take they got. Because only one guy broke up at the guy in the carrot
And so
costume.
I think they wrote him out, or they
my
tried to
God.
get rid of him, and so that's a famous episode for that reason.
Well, and that's the same thing with Land of the Giants. When Batman was on and it was all camp, they had delivered already 3 episodes, and they showed the 3rd episode before the pilot first because that was the campiest. So everybody thought, oh, Land of the Giants is like another Batman campy, hilarious thing.
Everybody tried to jump on that bandwagon.
Jump on the bandwagon, and then they started showing it in wrong sequence so that when you got to the pilot, oh, it's kind of supposed to be a serious thing.
They
It was
tried to
like,
jump on the bat wagon.
Drink.
all right.
I get cheers all around.
We're doing
Cheers.
shots now.
Hooray,
We're doing
my
shots.
God.
Whenever we hear a really bad pun,
I thought it was going to be.
stop
I
the
thought
show.
James.
Thanks, James.
Wait, that's yours right there.
I thought it was going to be
Larry.
Bat. Oh, I didn't see it.
We're doing shots,
there we go.
folks, just so you know.
yeah.
All right.
This is to the show.
To Monster Party.
So they're all taking a go take a shot. So they're all taking a shot right now. Oh my God!
Oh, sweet Jesus! Delicious.
Oh, bubbly-headed booby!
oh, the pain, the pain.
Who is that? Come on, where I can see you.
Oh my God!
Delicious.
Oh God!
so
I can feel my insides.
Yeah,
roasting
favorite
right
though.
now.
Sean, try coming up with the name of the control voice now, huh?
Yeah,
What about the Poseidon Adventure?
that's
I mean, not
No.
Voyage
There was a
to the
TV
bottom
show?
of the sea. No, Voyage to the bottom of the sea.
yes.
Yeah.
I saw an actress from the show talk about their tiptoe moments. So their scripts were actually short, and so they would shoot entire scenes where someone would go click, 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 click to a back room, and then for no reason, click, 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 come out. It had nothing to do with the plot. It was just they were filling up time for the show. So the scripts were so short that they would add scenes where people were just sneaking into other rooms and looking behind them and then sneaking out. And if you watch it now, there's a ton of those. There's like things where like people are like sneaking around for no reason. There's like nothing to do with the plot.
It sounds awesome.
Right, you would think. Like, I remember my favorite Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea is the one where there's a whale that has a nuclear bomb attached to it. At the same time, the President of the United States is signing a treaty on a boat just above the whale.
Wow.
That somehow...
You know now we can't air this episode.
That's why they got Day of the
Homeland
Dolphin.
Security is all on our ass right now. Yeah.
You know, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, though, that was a cool show, though. I mean, and the
is a cool
ship,
show.
That I kinda did- I did like that
ship
a little
looked
more.
great.
Yeah.
It was so great. And I love that it
The
showed
ship.
it like flipped
The
around in like 360, but then the guys were just sort of running back and forth.
But it was,
like,
I mean, they spent a lot of money on.
Well, but there are also a lot of
the
like
model was a lot of money.
the
but
model was, but then they'd go like, okay, what monster from Lost in Space
Yeah.
is waterproof?
They got more
yeah.
outlandish as it went on.
But I love
That's Irwin Allen saving money.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It
love
seem
that monster, the big monster, the big eyes, and the all kind of
the kind of crab
seaweed.
Yeah.
lobster guy.
It seemed like every other episode was either a seaweed monster or a lobster man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
See,
true.
But as a kid, you're delighted with that.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Oh my God, there's a lobster guy.
But think about the movie that had Peter Lorre in it. Like that was like big.
And Walter Pidgeon.
And
Walter
Barbara
Pidgeon.
Eden.
Barbara Eden was in it.
And a
yeah.
little more of a
Serious Cold
yeah,
War
like
kind of-
satire, and not satire.
No,
but
that
like,
wasn't satire.
No, it was more of like
intense, though.
yeah.
It's kind of, yeah, but this was that borderline that Irwin Allen always chased, right? It was
Yeah.
like, oh, is this a mockery or is this a
Right.
thing? And I don't think he knew he was being mocked. I think that was his actual personal taste. Was just in that cheese factor that
Yeah,
he didn't
yeah.
realize.
Even
I
the
think you might have
Poseidon
something there.
Adventure-
Yeah,
even the
so it was
Poseidon
a bit
Adventure was a little tongue in cheek.
I know. That's why we're doing it as a comedy, a two-person
There's
comedy.
got to be a morning after.
All right. Okay. So Monster Party.
And New Year's
Uh-oh,
Eve.
ASCAP.
I tell you.
Here's my other favorite.
Yeah.
When it's actually New Year's, when the
let's
tidal
get
wave
to it,
hits.
Dean. Sure, Dean.
Okay, instead of singing Old Lang Syne, which they couldn't actually afford, they sing "He's a Jolly Good Fella." He's a jolly good fella. Watch it again when they kind of does. It's like da 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 da.
man.
What New Year's party does that?
Happy New Year's, yay, yay! Happy New Year's, yay, yay!
I'm sure we could keep going on and on.
And we will.
We will.
We have another 15 minutes. So
Here's another
fuck
thing at
off,
Poseidon
Larry
Adventure.
Stroth.
Oh my gosh! I mean, there's so many great British TV series. I mean, we're talking Blake Seven,
Blake Seven?
UFO, Space 1999. I mean, there's so many. Star Maidens,
$6 million Man, The Bionic Woman,
Oh.
Battlestar Galactica,
Red Dwarf.
Buck Rogers.
Buck Rogers. Come
Red
on.
Dwarf.
You look,
Fuck
look
yeah.
again,
23rd
Sean.
century.
I think we just have to visit it another time because there's just
No, we
so,
don't.
Damn it,
Yeah.
no.
There's just
no.
so
We have-
many. There's so
You can't handle it?
many.
Is that your
There's-
problem?
There's just
You
so
can't handle
many.
it.
Saturday morning TV, Space Academy.
Oh, you have a
Jason
shot, and now you want to
Starkman,
close the episode.
Yeah.
Land
Is that
of
what
the
it is?
Lost, Arc 2.
Arc
So
2.
many, for God's
We can
sake.
talk.
I
We
wanna
can do
talk
a
an
whole
hour about Arc 2.
episode about Arc 2.
I know.
Earth-
I know.
Earth
And-
2.
Earth 2.
Or Earth 2.
Earth
yeah.
2.
The Earth 2 Arc 2
Or Bigfoot and
crossover.
Wild Boy.
The Jetsons. Yeah. You see.
Yeah,
You
we
see
covered that in Dystopian
But
Futures.
you see what
The prisoner, for fuck's sake.
But you see where this is going. That the point is that there is so much science fiction television
that
out
we should
there.
talk about it for another 15 minutes.
At least
15.
another 15, yeah.
All right, 10.
What about the future? That's what I'm worried about. I don't think that people are writing.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold
yeah,
on.
here we
Now,
go.
wait a minute. Hold on.
This is a good way to
Now,
cap the show,
right?
Right.
Have you seen Dark Mirror?
No.
Dark Mirror is excellent.
Where do I find this show?
Dark Mirror, you can get it on, I think it's on Netflix.
Yes, Netflix
Okay,
streaming.
very
And
good.
what,
And,
what is Dark Mirror?
Tell me.
Dark Mirror is probably the best anthology show since The Outer Limits.
Come on.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Now,
agree.
there are
Who's
very
doing this
few
thing?
of them.
I would
And
say
they're
so.
British?
It's 2 seasons of only 3 episodes per season. It was actually made about a couple years ago, actually.
And they're brilliant.
Really?
Every one of them. They don't do episodes where it's like in the far future. It's all very near future. It's all what could possibly happen.
Right.
So there's an episode about artificial intelligence and a woman who has just lost her husband. So, for example, she's able to recreate her husband through, at first it's just an app in her phone that will kind of recreate her husband's voice.
Ooh.
And
Like Siri?
well, kind of, but like it's that character is built on everything that
ever
he's
said on
posted,
camera.
like on Facebook,
yeah,
or
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
It's like
Amalgamate.
Max Headroom
they
almost. kind of
create
thing.
this kind of character, and then
I like it.
They're like, well, we can take it a step further. Really? Yeah, we can actually create you. It's in the early stages, but we can create you kind of an android. And so this android shows up. And
Talking
this,
like him.
Yeah, and it's kind of like him, but it's not.
Right.
And it's done so well. It's done with subtlety. It's done with intelligence. And it's some of the best science fiction I've ever
They're all kind of
I've seen.
projections of very
Topical.
Topical real ideas.
technology that's present right now.
I know,
So-
because I like this idea in robotics of the uncanny valley. You know, have you heard this? This idea that
I know a stripper, by the way.
has an uncanny valley.
So
That's her
Uncanny
name.
Valley.
No, uncanny valley is an actual term in robotics where R2D2, and those are cute robots.
Yeah.
But when you try to get more and more human,
Yeah.
the closer you get, the variances that it's off from a real human is the uncanny valley that sort of disassociate, that freaks you out by someone who has the latex face, who's putting emotions and her eyebrows are raising up and down and sort of speaking. It's that uncanny valley that you have to cross now in robotics to try get you to the full AI embracement.
right.
More
Well,
human
I
than
can't
human.
remember
Yes,
where
exactly.
I've seen this idea, but the idea of that you wouldn't want an android to look too human because it would freak you out.
Right, that's the uncanny valley. Yeah,
maybe something like in Big Hero 6. Big
Yeah,
Hero
it's a big,
6, which
like, inflatable.
which is great.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like Blade Runner, the replicants
replicants,
are too more
That's
human.
too human.
Right, and so you have to eradicate that.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, if you guys have not seen Black Mirror,
Dark Mirror.
Dark Mirror, Black Mirror.
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror, and
Black
it's
Mirror.
Charlie or Charles Brooker is the guy who created it, and he's known for doing a fantastic zombie series called
One of the best.
Dead Set.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's a-
that's
yeah.
Probably one of my favorite zombie things of all time.
It's like an alien. It's a zombie.
Fast zombies.
Zombie apocalypse happens during Big Brother. It's like, the
fantastic.
British Big Brother series, and they're stuck in the house, and then it realizes there's a zombie apocalypse happening. It's great.
That's
But same
fantastic.
guy
Yeah.
did Black Mirror.
That's
Okay.
cool, man.
Very smart, very good.
Well,
Okay, check it out.
It's
Black
something
Mirror.
I'm going to have to
John
check out.
Hamm guested on a recent episode.
A Christmas episode, yeah, which I haven't seen yet. Actually, he did. a
We
special,
have
yeah.
to watch that one. Yeah.
But Dean, just before we sum up, I want to say,
Yes.
like, having ridden this huge wave of sci-fi TV with X Files and Lone Gunmen, I mean, where do you think sci-fi TV is going today? Like, I mean, is there a glut of it? I mean, do you think we're going to see another
I've been
Twilight
wanting to
Zone,
ask that
another
for
Outer
years.
Limits?
You really?
Like,
Yes.
I mean, but let's face it. Today, it's not like when Twilight Zone came out or Star Trek or something. I mean, there's such a glut. There's so much.
Yeah, but
When is the next kind of groundbreaking sci-fi show going to happen? It hasn't happened yet. I mean,
no.
Third great question.
Third great question. I don't think it has happened yet because so much of great sci-fi is the zeitgeist of the society that we're living in, right? And nobody has enveloped what we're all living through at this moment and put it into a semi-future, future context or whatever. So I think that it's still waiting to happen. I haven't seen it. I haven't had anything that's sort of reverberated for the world I'm living in. You know what I'm saying? Weird. Anyway, so I'm not bragging, but I got a couple pitches that I'm waiting to shoot out.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I think
I'm sorry. Hold on. Yeah, just got a call from Showbiz. No, sorry. So sorry. Yeah.
Showbiz, damn you! I'll see you next week.
But Dean, you've been great.
Oh, thank you guys.
Thank you,
You've been
I
great.
can't believe it's taken me this long to be on the Monster Party. What the hell happened?
yeah, we'll have you back again. For
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I'm
we will find you.
I'm just going to pass out here and then just wake up and we'll do a Monster Party breakfast show.
That's a great idea for an episode. Wouldn't that be great? We drink ourselves
Passing out on the
until we
floor.
pass out,
drunken stupor.
And then just
and then we wake
crawl
up and I just go record. Anyways,
I think that's actually happening now.
Dean, is there anything that you're working on or something that we can
yeah, you
look
wanna
forward
plug
to?
or-
Let's,
Yeah.
start at the beginning. I'm on Twitter at DHagland. No Dean, just DHagland. And then you can see me at DeanHagland.com. And then you can go to my podcast, a weekly podcast that's been going on for 8 years, totally free.
Holy shit.
Yes, every Monday, a free show. We
What
put
the
up-
fuck?
How does that happen?
Cool. Every
week?
It's called Chill Pack Hollywood Hour. It's me and my co-producer Phil Ernest just talking about movies, celebrity deaths, and school closures.
Perfect. All my favorite subjects.
Well, we should
you had me at school closures.
Oh my god.
We should do a shout out as well to our own listeners.
Yes.
You can find us on Twitter at Monster Party HQ. Find us on YouTube at Monster Party TV. Also find us on Facebook at Monster Party TV. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, please write a review.
Write a review.
Review. They
Apparently-
post something on Facebook.
Write a review. Well,
Apparently
yeah.
these things
Write a review,
matter. Apparently
goddammit.
these
I did
things
not
count.
know
they
they
count
mattered.
these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
And if
knew?
you're just driving around Studio City, just find me. Find me.
He's walking around.
I'm walking around. You know what? I'm at Ralph's.
You're out.
Why don't you go to Ralph's?
Look for the
maybe.
guy with the headphones on.
well,
Yeah.
but the one thing we can all learn from this is there is so much science fiction television that we haven't even
Begun.
Scratch the surface.
So
yeah,
we're
going to have to do another one.
We'll
yes.
have to do another one.
Five more podcasts.
But we
this
did
has
an
been great.
admirable job.
Yeah.
we
Our
covered
breakfast show. Our breakfast show.
And remember, the truth is out there.
Yeah.
Is it?
I was going to say trust
Very
no
good.
one.
Oh, you I like. That's the Dean Haglund I fell in love with.
What? This is getting weird.
Oh, boy. Well, in that case, I'm Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
Keep America strong.
Watch Sci-Fi TV.
Trust no one.
That's funky.